Well, we've bit the bullet and decided to add another 10.5 kilowatts of solar PV generation to our house. That's in addition to the 4.5 kilowatts of off-grid solar PV that we've already got installed. So in today's video, we'll talk through why we decided to get more solar, how we chose a provider to do the install, the components, some pricing, and also some rebates. So stay watching. Welcome to Electric Car Australia, the Aussie YouTube channel where we talk electric cars and sustainable living technologies. If you're new to the channel, please click the subscribe button, and if you're a returning visitor, thanks for watching, we really appreciate it. Also leave us a comment or some suggestions in the feedback. Subscribing is the single easiest and free way to support the channel, so we really appreciate all your help. And of course, share it with your mates if you think they'd be interested. So let's talk solar PV. So long-term viewers will know that we've been into solar for about 30 years now, and I'll include a link up above to our video we done on our DIY solar install a number of years ago. So that was a 4.5 kilowatt system and also includes lead acid battery storage, so old technology stuff. But back in July of this year, so 2021, we decided that we'd expand our solar PV. And the main reason for that is because next year we're getting a pool installed, and we've also obviously got an EV. So while we could charge the EV on the off-grid solar, it was a bit difficult. So we are connected to the grid here, obviously in metropolitan Brisbane, and it was just a bit unreliable charging off our off-grid system because you get the cloudy days. You know, we could only use our smaller granny chargers or the 10 amp charger on the off-grid system because of inverter limitations. So we thought, pool coming, we're putting a pool heater in as well, so that the demand and the consumption will definitely go up next year. So we started looking around for a system, and keeping in mind 80% of our consumption in the house is from our off-grid system, so we'll continue to use that. But we just wanted to add an on-grid system with a decent amount of demand. So we'll talk shortly about the size of the system, the price and all that sort of stuff. But the key thing for us was to have a good installer that could really provide some advice on the latest technologies, qualities, all that sort of stuff. And also some tips and ideas on matching the capacity of your EV charger. So we'll talk again a little bit more about that later. But it is quite important to think all these things through before you get a solar system installed. So that takes us to how we chose a supplier for our PV system. Prices vary immensely. However, we wanted to make sure that we were getting the best advice and also the best product and install. So for us, it wasn't so much about the price. It needed to be a competitive price, but we were really about the service and the quality because this is a long-term investment. So we chose Local Power here in Brisbane. I met Russ from Local Power way back in 2007. So Russ and Rob started a solar buying group. That's where Local Power started. I talked to those guys way back then, but unfortunately at that time the pricing that they could get was still above my budget. Hence why I went standalone and done my own DIY system. Back then a 2 kilowatt system around 2007 was approximately $20,000 minus approximately $8,000 in government rebates. So compare that to the pricing now, that was a very expensive system, and that was even after the buying group deals. So I'll include all the links to Local Power at the end of the video, and I'll also put a link into the Local Power buying group history because it's worth a read. It's very interesting where the guys started out. But as you've probably guessed, Local Power are a middleman, for want of a better word, like a project manager. So Local Power don't actually do the install. What they do is they chat to you, they come out, they do a site visit, they work out your demand what you're actually trying to achieve with your solar, and they'll suggest the best system, size it, price it, etc. And then they outsource the installation to a handful of select electricians. The other thing that's a benefit, they provide these covers. So our install, and we'll talk more about this shortly, there was lots of extra little bits and pieces. It wasn't just a bog standard solar install. So let's go up on the roof. We'll have a quick look at the panels and the placement, and then we'll come back down and we'll open the cover and the switchboard, and we'll talk about the actual components in the set. So let's go up on the roof. So here we are up on the roof of the Electric Car Australia abode, and the camera there is facing northwest. So on the front of our house, we've got 10 REC 330 watt panels. So the total system is made up of 32 panels. So we've got roof space on the front of the house to put 10. That's north facing. We move over here to east facing. So we don't actually have ideal orientation on our house roof, which is unfortunate. But as you can see, it is 9 AM in the morning. And so we get good coverage early in the morning on that east facing 10 panels. And then as we look over the back here, we've got a barbecue area roof, and we've got another 12 panels on that. So that's the panels at the bottom of the brown roof there. And of course you'll notice our evacuated tube solar hot water system as well. Yeah, fantastically efficient in Queensland. They're actually too efficient, those, believe it or not. We need to cover those tubes with shade cloth in summer because the water boils. And you can just see over the back there, that's our 4.5 kilowatt off-grid system. And down on the left-hand side there is the battery shed. So the left-hand side of the shed, you might just see the no smoking sign there. That is where the lead acid batteries are. So 32 panels in total, and we'll talk more about the rest of the system when we jump off the roof. But look, the fantastic thing here in Queensland, if you look at my neighbours over the back, solar. The house in the centre of the screen there over the back, solar. The one there in the centre, solar. The one across on the other street, solar. The one next to it, solar. There is literally solar panels on every roof around me. So the great thing is here in Australia now, particularly here in Queensland, I think we were one of the leaders for residential household solar. We might have just been pipped by New South Wales. I'm not sure, don't quote me on that. Let's go back downstairs and have a look at the good stuff on the switchboard and the inverter. So just quickly, while we're up on the roof, a couple of things to talk about. I believe Australia is one of the only countries in the world that has rooftop DC isolators. So this is a safety component, obviously, so you can isolate the panels from the roof. And this is obviously a cover, because as you know, here in Australia, the UV rays from the sun are quite harsh. So these covers just protect the plastic isolator from the UV rays. You'll notice on the back too that we've had to put a risers up. So that's the risers because our barbecue roof was sloping the wrong way. So that was a little bit more expense with our system. We had to cut the vent pipe down for the plumbing. Because you don't want shadows coming over your panels. You lose a significant amount of generation. So that's just something to show. That other little lump over in the roof, that's a skylight. And there's the roof penetration where the guys have gone through the tiles. So nicely sealed up there with the conduit. So yeah, I just thought it was worth showing you that. Because again, this isn't a run-of-the-mill sort of installation. There was a few little extra bits and pieces, and we'll talk through that with the pricing. Okay, let's go downstairs. So here we are down where most of the action happens. So let's talk about the entire system. So as we mentioned, we've got 32 REC solar, 330 watt solar panels on the roof. So that gives us a total of 10.5 kilowatts of generation capacity. Those panels have a 25-year product and output warranty. So that's key when you're comparing products. That's also product warranty and output. So a lot of panels might have a 20-year output warranty, but they'll only have a 5-year product warranty. So really check that out when you're comparing apples with apples. We've got our Fronius Primo 8.2 kilowatt single phase inverter. And that came with standard 5-year warranty, and there was a deal on at the time where you could get an additional 5 years warranty for free. So that means this inverter is warranted for 5 years for parts as well. Now this is not a hybrid inverter. We won't go into too much detail on that today in this video, but just to say you can't connect batteries to this one as it is. And for us, that wasn't needed because we already have our off-grid battery system with storage. Not to mean later on we wouldn't consider it, and this would need a few different modifications and upgrades. But as it is, it's not a hybrid inverter. So Fronius do make hybrid inverters that are basically plug and play for addition of batteries at a later date if you want, but this is one of the standard ones. And this is also the largest inverter Fronius make in a single phase variety. So we only have single phase connection to our house, so 8.2 kilowatts was as large as we could go. If you have 3-phase, I think we can go up to something like 18 kilowatts. The inverter cover, so I'll show you that a little bit more closely shortly, but that's a great addition. Again, we mentioned the UV rays here in Queensland. It's an aluminium frame, it's got a polycarbonate front on it, so it just really protects the inverter because these are quite expensive. And you've got the little daughter there keeping the dog in the gate as she goes through. So these are quite expensive piece of kit, so obviously the cost of the cover there is well worth it to protect this as a long-term investment. We also had our radiant solar racking, so we showed you that a little earlier up on the roof. So that's the solar racking for under the panels and also the tilt racking. There's a 15-year warranty on that. And on our system, we got 145 what they call small scale technology certificates. So in a nutshell, they're the rebates, the federal government rebates that are still available here in Australia. Significantly reduced over the years, but look, it all helps. So there was 145 of those available for this size system. They were $35 each at the current rate. So that gave us approximately a $5,000 rebate off the cost of the system. So nothing to be sneezed at. So the total cost of this system was $11,500 after the rebates or the incentive. Now, as I mentioned, this wasn't a stock standard one. So some of the additional stuff was the cover over the inverter. Also over in the switchboard here, we had to get our switchboard replaced. So our old existing switchboard didn't meet the current electrical standards. So the moment we'd done anything to our electrical, we needed to upgrade. It's an embedded switchboard which is cut into the wall because we're in a driveway here and we don't want things to stick out too much. So there was quite a bit of work for the electricians to pull the old switchboard out, cut the bricks, fit the new switchboard in. So that was a supply and fit. All the new circuit breakers there, earth leakage breakers. So all this was included in the $11,500 price. So you could knock, at a guess, maybe $3,500 off the price for all these additional bits and pieces if you had a reasonably bog standard install. You'll notice also the smart meter. So we had to get a smart meter put in. Now our electricity retailer done that for free. So you do need to shop around. Some retailers charge up to $300 for that. So just, be mindful of that. We're with ReAmped Energy. We're on quite a good electricity cost deal and also one of the lowest connection fees that I could find here in Queensland. Having said that, we only get 3 cents per kilowatt for the energy we return to the grid, which is not very high. but at the moment it suits what we need. So again, they're the sorts of things that you need to crunch your own numbers. And when it considered that they gave us a free smart meter as part of the changeover, that also had to be taken into account. So look, I'll include a link to ReAmped in the show notes if you wanted to have a look at their website. There's also a referral code you could use. So if you did use the referral code, we would get a $50 credit on our electricity bill, and you as a new user, if you sign up, would get $50. So look, generally what we say in our videos is our own opinions, etc. We don't get any kickbacks, rebates or payments from anybody, but in that particular case we would. But look, I can recommend ReAmp. They've been good for us, but of course it depends on your individual circumstances. So to give you guys a little bit of a closer look, there is the inverter. It's got a screen there and menus you can do. It's also got a really good app and functionalities that you can look at. This is what we called an actively cooled inverter. So you'll notice around the side there that there's some air vents, and it does have fans in it. So the fans pretty much continuously run. Hence the reliability of these inverters is very high. They're not relying on passive cooling where you just have the heat ventilating up. So at the top of this, you can feel the heat coming out of there. And look, those little fans at some point will need to be replaced, but the cost of a fan replacement is far cheaper than replacing the main chunks of inverters. So I'd rather do that. There's a closer look inside the switchboard, and you'll notice there's a little smart meter, a Fronius smart meter there as well. So that controls the app and the details you can see on the app. That was included as part of our purchase, I guess. There's all the new breakers. That's your big main switch or main fuse coming in from the street, and there's your smart meter. So yeah, all in all, a nice upgrade as part of the solar install, and you can see the electrician's done a really good job of cutting that into the wall. We're really happy with it. This one here is for the remote, I guess, monitoring and charging invoicing. So that's linked to your smart meter, so nothing to do with the solar, but linked to the smart meter, so your energy retailer can remotely look at your meter consumption. So let's just put the cover down here, and I just had a piece of conduit holding that up. So this is the polycarbonate cover. We'll include a link in the show notes for that. So Local Power, I believe, manufacture these and provide them. It's a great product. As I said, you can choose your colors. This polycarbonate is a dual layer, I guess you'd call it. You can see the thickness there. This is extensively used in Europe. It stops UV rays and heat, and it's a fantastic product. It's a lot better than just the single sort of sheet polycarbonate you see on a lot of barbecue area roofs and stuff. Is obviously expensive, but great for this purpose. So yeah, thoroughly recommend having a look at that as an option as well, and we'll include the link to that one. So let's talk about system payback and performance. So this will obviously heavily depend on where you live, the size of your system, your orientation of your panels, your electricity retailer, etc. But as I mentioned, mine's in metropolitan Brisbane here. We've got 22 north-facing panels and 10 east-facing panels. Our estimated daily generation is about 42 kilowatts on average. Our estimated annual energy generated for the entire year is about 15,462 kilowatt hours. Now Local Power calculate all this out with software and algorithms, so any electricity solar retailer will be able to do this for you. And I'll include a table in the video, but we currently pay 20 cents per kilowatt for our electricity. Now that's retail, and that includes 100% green electricity. So that's quite cheap for 100% green energy. As I mentioned, that's with ReAmp. So if we do those numbers on that annual generation of 15,462 kilowatts at 20 cents a kilowatt for a retail price of electricity, we're saving around $3,000 a year, or we're offsetting around $3,000 per year of electricity costs. So we're generating that ourselves instead of having to buy it off a retailer at 20 cents a kilowatt. So at those really generic, average, high-level numbers, that would be about 3.7 years payback if we used 100% of the electricity we generate. So that's another thing that you need to take into your calculations. How much of that energy that you generate do you actually use, and how much do you send back to the grid? But one of the key things I mentioned there is the demand. So look, we'll put a screenshot in there from the app on the phone, and what that clearly shows is the difference between what we're generating and what we're consuming. So I'll put it up on the screen, but I'm just looking at it on my phone, a screenshot I took. So you can clearly see there that when the sun comes up in the morning, the orange bars obviously go up. Now we've got a 5 kilowatt export limit here in Queensland, so when we're not using energy, or when we don't have a demand, the maximum amount we can put into the grid is 5 kilowatts. So that's why you'll see the orange bars jump up to 5 and they sort of plateau along there. What happens is you'll see down sort of in the middle in the yellow there, that's when we plugged the EV in to start charging. That was with the 10 amp car charger, so drawing about 2,000 watts. So what you'll see is there that the PV production was at about 5,000 watts, or 5 kilowatts in the orange. We plugged the car in at about, let's say, 11 a.m, 11:30. The self-consumption jumped up to above 2,000 watts, or maybe about 2.2 kilowatts. But back to the car, so once we plug the car in, you'll notice the inverter kicks in and the PV production jumps to over 7 kilowatts. So because we've got an 8.2 kilowatt inverter, that is the absolute maximum this inverter can generate. Now in reality, with our sun panels facing east, some north, cloud, etc., the most that we've seen out of our system is 7.5 kilowatts. Sorry guys, we're back. The GoPro battery went flat and I took the opportunity to come under the off-grid solar panels and get out of the sun because it's quite warm. So look, not exactly sure where I was up to, but I think I was starting to waffle anyway. So in a nutshell, the maximum that we can generate from our new system is 7.5 kilowatts. The export limit is 5 kilowatts. So when we're talking about putting on big loads like the EV, and this is the stuff that Local Power's great talking to about your generation, matching your generation and your demand. Because if we put a 7 kilowatt home charger on the wall here at the house, and the maximum we can generate is only 7.5, and that's in perfect conditions when the sun's out, if we turn like the pool pump on, we're actually going to be buying electricity from the grid because our generation won't be able to match our consumption. And that's on a 10.5 kilowatt system. So if you've only got a 5 or a 6.6 kilowatt system, which are the most common in Australia at the moment, by putting in a 7 kilowatt EV charger, straight away, you're not going to be able to generate enough electricity to cover your demand. So that's one of the reasons why, unless you've got a real need for a 7 kilowatt home charger for your EV, I would say stick with your 10 or 15 amp chargers, which only draw about 2 kilowatts or 3.2 kilowatts. And then you know that your demand from your EV is well within your generation capacity on a nice sunny day. So just something to think about, and you can see that from the screenshot there that we plugged in the small granny charger, 2 kilowatts. We've still got ample space, so all that orange space above the yellow and the blue line there, that's excess capacity. So the pool pump can kick in, the pool heater can kick in, and we're still using all of our own power. So guys, I hope that was helpful. Look, in closing, we were very happy with the services of Local Power here in Brisbane. We've talked about a lot of stuff today, lots of products, lots of services, our ReAmped Energy retailer, etc. So we'll put all those links in the show notes section. And look, you'll notice I've got my Carina t-shirt on again. So look, if you know of a not-for-profit community group who would like to install solar on their buildings, Carina provide interest-free loans. They're also a not-for-profit I'm a member of, but they provide interest-free loans for other not-for-profits to install solar. And then the savings from the solar pay off the loan. So it's a great revolving credit model. Carina is a fantastic organisation to be part of, so I really love their work. As I said, I'm an active member myself. So if you do know of a community group, not-for-profit, that you're involved in, or you might have a friend or family member involved in, please direct them to the carinafund.org.au website, and they can have a look at how Carina might be able to help there. And look, finally, thanks for watching. As I mentioned, subscribe if you haven't. It's a free and easy way to help us, and it really does support us. And also share the videos with any of your friends. And we love to hear comments. We don't just want to have a million likes and no comments. We really want to engage with you guys. So if you've got any comments on what we've talked about today, any suggestions, you've got a system that's similar and you'd like to provide some feedback, we'd absolutely love to hear from you, and we do try to reply to all of those. Other than that, that's it. Stay safe and look forward to talking to you soon. Cheers.